Michael, thank you very much for being our next guest in our Metal Frontman series. Do you recall when you first heard metal or maybe heavy rock music that made you want to sing?
I was very young when I discovered just classic heavy, but when it comes to rock music, yeah, I just grew up with the 50s rock and roll. But if we're talking about heavy music, probably around when I probably started listening to it when I was 8, but I might even discover it a little bit before that. But the start of listening to it, I was probably 8. And that's been bands like Black Sabbath and Dio, classic heavy. I totally remember, the next house to where my parents lived and where I grew up as a child. The next door, my mother's brother was living, and he had a huge record collection. And normally I would just jump over the fence and go into his room, and he would be sitting and flipping vinyl records, and we were listening to all kinds of rock music, but there was just one record that caught my attention. It looked very scary, and it was the debut album from Black Sabbath, with the woman in front there. I was like, oh my God, what is this? And he said, oh, you're too young for that, let's not go there because Satan will haunt you. And I said, will he? Now we have to listen to it. You don't tell a young dude anything like that, because that makes it more interesting. So when he took his car up to the city to buy grocery, I knew where the key was. So I jumped in, took the record and put it on, and hallelujah, the gates of hell was opened. I just walked in, and it was great. That sound of Tony Iommi's guitar and the rain and that very nasal voice of Ozzy Osbourne, it did something. And at that time, I knew that I need to figure more out about this thing called heavy metal. That record pretty much started it all.
What made you want to become a vocalist? Were there some specific singers that you looked up to when you started your journey?
To blend it all together, singers that I really liked was singers like Elvis Presley and Ronnie James Dio, Tony Martin, James Hetfield, James Dean Bradfield from Manic Street Preachers. I was a huge fan of Matt Barlow, who was a singer in Iced Earth. Those were the kind of singers that I really were trying to channel. But I didn't start out as a singer. I started out as a growler in a death metal band called Dominus, where we did some records in the early 90s. But trying to learn to sing, those were the singers that I just mentioned that I was trying to channel and figure out how to find my own voice.
As you said, you started with Dominus before forming Volbeat. How did you end up being the vocalist of the band, and did you have some death metal idols when you started?
When we formed Dominus, we were 2 growlers, so we we divided up. I took one half and he took the other half, and later on when I went on my own path and continued Dominus and the other guy went a different path, I just took over 100% the vocals. Yeah, I definitely remember being inspired by the 2 singers from Grave in Sweden. That was Ola and Jürgen. I thought they were one of the best growlers in the death metal scene. And amazing album, their debut album, Into the Grave. They've done great albums afterwards as well. But those were definitely a great inspiration. Barney from Napalm Death was also a huge inspiration as a growler. Jan Chris from Gorefest was a huge inspiration. Those are some of the growlers that I was trying to channel when I was growling in Dominus.
Were you losing your voice all the time?
No, I guess it's the youth just took care of me. So I could do everything wrong and it would still work. So no, I did not.
Do you remember doing some specific covers while learning to growl?
I was never really into rehearsing or practicing covers because I was more eager about writing my own songs. We could fool around with other bands' material just for the fun of it in the rehearsal room, play a few riffs or a half song just for the fun of it. But for us, it was more important to go out and play our own material, but show the respect for the bands that we've been listening to. So a lot of times you've been telling the crowd or the listeners who you were inspired by because that was something you were proud of. So we were not really that much into doing cover songs, but more being inspired by the bands that we liked.
Did it take a long time to figure out the technique for the harsh vocals?
No, for some reason I don't know. It is. It's not just something you do. It does. You need a lot of practice. But I don't know how I managed to pull it off. It was just there. I guess it was just the insane curiosity of wanting to do it that it just pretty much worked from the start. So I didn't have to rehearse that much, I remember. But honestly, it's not just something you do out of nowhere.
Dominus lasted from the early 90s to early 2000s. So what kind of transition was it from death metal vocals to clean singing?
That's quite interesting because I believe it was the third Dominus album. It was already on the second album called The First Nine, which was a little bit more melodic death metal. And I kind of wanted already at that time switch over to singing. And I remember I kind of wanted to sound a little bit like Matt Barlow from Iced Earth because he has some rawness, some depth at the same time. So it was just not this falsetto or very clean high vocals. There was some really depth to his voice. And I remember going on my bike on the countryside with my Walkman, listening to Barlow sing, and I'll be singing along. And in my head, I sounded totally like Matt Barlow until we hit the studio and everybody was like, and I heard it, oh my God, that's terrible. I cannot go there. So I start growling again on that album, just in a little bit higher pitch. Then on the third Dominus album, we went a totally different direction. That was at the time where a lot of bands wanted to play that death and roll thing that Entomb became the masters of. And a lot of bands were not good at it. We were not good at it either. But we gave it a try, and I remember, again, I desperately wanted to be able to sing, but it turned out more like me yelling or roaring. But I was still it was baby steps. I was just getting a little bit better for each time. And then on the last Dominus release, that was called Godfellas, I went back to the deep growling again. But then at that time, there was a few songs on it where I would sing a little bit more on the chorus, where I just started to find a clean vocal sound. I was not really that good at it, but it was, again, a baby step where I could hear, okay, you're getting there. It's not about sounding polished or perfect, because I don't believe in that, and I really don't support it. But baby steps. And I knew the next band that I was going to form, that I was going to use a lot of time trying to find my vocal style and sound. And I just got better at it. And the first demo that we did with Volbeat, I believe there was 10 songs on it. That was still a long way to go. But that's where probably the more cleaning singing style started to get a little bit better. But the technique was still kind of off. But that's part of the journey, becoming better at what you're doing.
So do you feel the years you spent in extreme metal helped you with the clean singing?
I guess, baby steps. I love my past releases, and now I'm revisiting them again in my other band, Asinhell. But I do believe that Dominus was a good stepping stone to what was about to happen later.
So after forming Volbeat, when did you develop your distinctive singing style that is now so impossible to?
Yeah. You know, I cannot even put on some of our first records where I'll be, and it's just when the, I like the innocence of searching for your sound. That's so great because that's at the time you manage to create something unique and your signature sound. And I like the idea that you can constantly progress and getting better at what you're doing without striving for perfection. So some of those first Volbeat releases, maybe the first 3 records, you know, I could hear that I'm still really struggling a little bit, but also really searching for the technique but you know, that's part of the charm. Sometimes it's funny to hear some people say the first releases were where the vocals were best, and I would go, oh man, I cannot even listen to it. But you know, it has its time, it has its moments, and you know, it's all good.
How was it for you as a vocalist to perform many days in a row with Volbeat when you started touring extensively?
First of all, you know, rewinding and going back, thinking about the tours we did in the past, you know, we could easily play 160 shows per year. I think the record was 189 we had one year, but so there was a lot of singing and a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, but we got away with it because of the youth. So, but by time you pay the price, and you're starting to discover that booze is not the right way for a singer because it would dry out your vocal cords, and it would just becomes more difficult to actually sing clean. But best medicine in the world is a good night of sleep, and eat well, and don't touch the booze too much. And so we definitely have some years with a lot of drinking and partying, and I tried to convince myself that I'll be all right as long as I had a bottle of whiskey with me on stage. Then the voice will be absolutely great. The only thing that was great was me being too drunk to hear that it actually didn't sound good. But again, you got away with it. It was live music. It was fun. The audience had fun. We had fun. But, you know, later on, you discover that this is not going to work like that. So you have to change your lifestyle to be able to continue playing so many shows. So that's what I did. You know, took away the booze. I'm not drinking on tour, and I'm still not drinking on tour. It happens if we got some months off that I can go out with the guys and have a drink, but not when I'm working or on tour. That's a no-go. I don't have the youth or the voice for it anymore.
Do you have any warm-up routine?
Back in the days, it was 3 glasses of whiskey. And then I believed I was good. But yeah, now I have to, because I went through 3 throat operations. Even though that my singing style, I heard that from my singing coach. You know, he said, your technique is brilliant. You're doing absolutely nothing wrong. The thing is, we're born with some, we're all born with, what do you call it in English? But let's call it singing lips. So every time we speak, those lips are making vibrations to make a tone. But mine are so far away from each other that I have to use double volume to make them even touch each other. And that's something that I'm born with, and that's probably how I created the sound with my voice, because I put so much pressure on it for the lips to hit each other and for the tone to come out. So after all those operations, I definitely need warm-up. The best thing that I can do for a show is take a really hot shower and let the hot water hit my head and the chest, and then I'd have some techniques that I go through from my singing coach, and then I'm good to go.
You have released quite a few albums with Volbeat. Are there certain records that you can point out where you see yourself taking like a very step forward as a vocalist?
I don't know. I think since probably since Beyond Hell Above Heaven album, I think I can hear that I'm, as a singer, still developing on each record. There's something that I'm getting better at. There's stuff that I don't do on other records. So I think I managed on each album to find small paths that I can go to and do stuff that I haven't done before, and being better at what I'm doing. You know, I still think there's a lot to learn, and yeah, who knows how I sound on the next album. But it's after those operations where I really have to take care of my voice because it is blood vessels who explodes, and then very bad things grow in your throat that you have to remove by surgery. And the last operation I had was a blue laser operation. So I really have to be careful with all the pressure that I put my voice through. So we're not going to play 180 shows anymore, and that we don't have to. And it's so everything is very calculated. And these days, the kids at home, they are the bosses. So their dad is not going to play 180 shows anymore. But yeah, you know, definitely some warm-ups, and go straight to bed after a show, drink a lot of water, and wake up with some positive energy the next day.
You mentioned that you have a vocal coach. Have you ever had to take vocal lessons during your life?
No, I was always a little bit afraid of both vocal lessons and guitar lessons, because I kind of said, if I got those lessons, I would probably think too much about what I'm doing. And and sometimes you hear a musician thinking too much about what they're doing, and it becomes a little bit stuck or a little bit too calculated, or just, I don't know, soulless, if you ask. And since I already discovered that I had a certain signature in my voice and guitar style, I was like, why ruin that by having others telling me what to do? You know, I'm not really into a lot of rules, and I'm not striving for perfection or for doing anything absolutely correct or right. It's what works and what feels good. So no, I did not, and I'm really happy that I didn't, because I still believe that the way that I managed to figure out how to use my voice and how to play the guitar, that created the Volbeat sound. But I am very thankful for the help that I'm getting now after the operations, because now I need a certain technique to be able to pull it off.
So the upcoming album of Volbeat, God's Evangelist Trust, is going to be released on June 6th. Were there any new things of the album that you tried vocally?
Yeah, sometimes I don't think about it until my producer or some of the guys in the band say, "Oh, that sounds new." And I was like, "It does? Yeah, you haven't done that before. What's that? That's really cool. Oh, okay, let's keep that." Most of the time, I don't even recognize it or discover it. It's just something that I do because I'm in the zone. I'm inspired. So it just, you know, I just let it go. So yeah, I believe there's definitely a couple of things on this one vocally that I haven't done before. I'm also not singing as much on this album. There's more room for the guitars, because I knew if we're gonna go out and play a lot of shows and promote this album, I'm not gonna overdo the singing. I want to take care of my voice. And then if I put on some of the past records, it always blows my mind that oh my God, you're singing constantly. Just shut up. Let the guitar work a little bit. So there's more room for the guitars on this new album. And it's great, because now people can also hear the inspiration in the riffing and stuff like that. So yeah, I believe there's some technique and stuff singing-wise on this album that I haven't done before.
Also recently returned to death metal, as you said, with Asinhell. What was it like to go back playing death metal?
I wrote all the music, so I'm playing the guitar. that was not complicated at all because that's the school I come from, and so it was just like jumping up on your bike again and just go. It was just time. I finally had the time to do it. It was something that I wanted to do for many years, but since Volbeat has been so extremely busy, active on the road, constantly touring or being in the studio or in the rehearsal room, there was just no time for a death metal project until the sad thing, Corona came, and I think we were a lot of musicians who suddenly took the time to, do something else or just get other stuff done, and me included. So that's definitely something I'm very happy about, very proud of, and it was very easy to me, for me just to pick up the death metal guitar again and do some old school death metal riffing. And I can't wait to start on the next album. That's probably going to happen after this Volbeat tour this year. And it's still something that very much inspired me also on this new Volbeat album, because when I went on tour with the Asinhell, I was back in the clubs and the small venues where I started my career. So a lot of great memories, and great to see that they all look totally the same. The fungus and moisture was dripping down the walls and a cockroach was running. It felt right. It was just great memories. It just took me back to those days of tape trading and exchanging flyers and buying underground magazines. No internet, street credibility. You hooked up with your friends on the street back in the days with Dominus, and a lot of great memories. And that just gave me some fuel and fire when I returned home, because we were kind of told to take a break with Volbeat for at least a year. And that was something we haven't done before. We were not used for not being on the road. But, my management said, go on tour with Asinhell, get that third throat surgery and recover well. Take the time to recover the amount of time that is needed. That was probably something that I didn't do the last couple of times. So I did that. So that tour with Asinhell, going back, starting on Volbeat, definitely gave me a lot of energy and inspiration.
What was your parents' reaction to your harsh vocals?
Yeah, they were probably thinking, whatever makes him happy. Of course, I don't think they understood anything about it, but they gave me a lot of freedom. They could see that this death metal thing was making me happy. I was constantly working with my band, and they thought it was interesting too, all this tape trading and exchanging letters and trying to promote your own music. They thought that was very interesting, so they gave me all the freedom in the world. And I believe they also sometimes they knew, okay, he's not in school, he's probably taking the train to Copenhagen to run around with his flyers and demos, but we'll let him for a few days, but then back to school. They didn't quite understand the music, but they understood the work behind it. They were very proud of that, and as long as it made me happy, they were happy. So when they heard Volbeat, that was something they could relate to, because they could hear the inspirations of the music that I grew up with.
Is there any advice that you would give to someone starting out in metal as vocalist or as guitarist?
Follow your heart. Don't let anyone else tell you what to do. Just listen to this thing in here. Then you'll be all right.